Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and this is Billboard Breakdown. So after 2 weeks of pretty hectic movement, things seem to have finally settled down a little bit on the Hot 100. Now, this didn't mean we didn't get some new debuts or a few big shifts, but with the resulting positions of the top 10, everything resetting back to normal, it looks like we got a week of calm before the aftermath of the Grammys and Kanye's release blows into the chart into complete chaos. You take the weeks of relaxation where you can get them. So I might as well take a look at our top 10, and as I expected, Justin Bieber retook the #1 spot with Love Yourself, but I'm not sure how long it's gonna last. Yes, it's dominant in airplay and has great YouTube, but sales are starting to level off and it isn't hugely dominant in streaming yet. Then again, with Stressed Out by 21 Pilots coming up at number 2, it might not need to be, as that song's sales and streaming are also kind of leveling off, with really its best gains coming on radio. It is enough to hold off Justin Bieber's Sorry at number 3, but there are other factors there. Shrinking airplay, weak sales, thinning streaming. It's really where it is thanks to continued YouTube dominance, but it's facing competition from Work by Rihanna featuring Drake, which to my surprise pulled up to number 4 on the back of streaming sales and something of a radio push. Nothing huge, but if a video drops, expect this to become a real contender. Of course, we got the sales leader of this week, My House by Flo Rida, which rose up to number 5 on the back of respectable gains pretty much across the board. And it was enough to shove back Hello by Adele down to number 6, which is burning off its established airplay at a very quick rate, only helped by YouTube and okay sales at this point. And now we've got our former number 1 from last week, Pillow Talk by Zayn, sliding down to number 7 as the sales and streaming cooled off significantly, and the radio really didn't pick up nearly enough to compensate and support the strong YouTube. Next up, we got the continued strength of Me, Myself, and I by G-Eazy featuring Bebe Rexha, which has quietly picked up a pretty meaty chunk of streaming sales and airplay gains. Nothing huge, but certainly respectable across the board. Slightly similar case for Roses by the Chainsmokers featuring Roses, which would be weaker across the board except what it looks like an airplay peak, so its future might be uncertain in weeks to come. Finally, we get a song re-entering the top 10, Stitches by Shawn Mendes, which I'd argue is here on airplay inertia and something needed to fill the gap when Drake's Summer 16 fell out. I wouldn't expect this to get any bigger anytime soon. And on that note, our losers and dropouts. The majority of the former category you could have seen coming, as long, slow descents from Role Models by J. Cole, Again by Fetty Wap, and Big Rings by Drake and Future finally hit their end, along with the recent expected losses for Waking on a Dream by Empire of the Sun and Backup by DJ Low featuring Big Sean. The only track that fell out that kind of surprised me a bit was Play No Games by Big Sean, Chris Brown, and Ty Dolla $ign, but it's been dipping in and out of the Hot 100 for a while now. It never really has been a smash. Now on our losers, however, a bit more mixed. Sure, we get losses like The Fix by Nelly and Jeremiah going down to 97, and sadly, Irresistible by Fall Out Boy and Demi Lovato down to 86, and you knew that Drake's Summer 16 wouldn't last in the top 10, so seeing it fall to 26 isn't that surprising. Then there's I Love This Life by Low Cash, which is clinging on, but country radio will likely rotate it out soon. It's nearing its 20 weeks. What I'm thrilled to see is White Iverson by Post Malone finally on the way up, falling down to 34 this week, as I have to hope people are just getting sick of this dreary, asinine nonsense. Granted, I can't discount that people are suddenly getting sick of bad music, because if we look at our re-entries, it's not exactly good to see Somewhere on a Beach by Dierks Bentley return, even if it is only to 100. On a slightly better note, Big Sale by Wiz Khalifa and Travis Scott also came back to 74, although I'd argue it's probably more off of Travis Scott's popularity than Wiz Khalifa's, even though he did drop his newest album to profound indifference from pretty much everybody. People were probably a lot more interested in the Super Bowl, for instance, which you can plainly tell given the huge success of Adventure of a Lifetime by Coldplay, which leapt up to number 13 this week. Now, I don't predict this will last. The song is not very good, and Coldplay was overshadowed at the Super Bowl, which surprises me that given all the internet hype and controversy, that Formation by the Beyonce didn't chart at all. You'd think at least the controversy would have given it some form of charting presence. In any case, the other two gains aren't all that exciting. Down the DM by Yo Gotti picks up major steam off the video to 21, and I Took a Pill in Ibiza by Mike Posner continues its surge up to 33. Considering the song is actually pretty good here, I'm actually excited to see how high it manages to get before the momentum finally dies out. And now, on to our considerable crop of new entries, starting with number 99, Little Bit of You by Chase Bryant. Look, folks, I've probably discussed bro country more than any other critic should for the sake of their own sanity, but sometimes there are acts that even slip the net for me. Chase Bryant is one of those guys that I roughly remember. Take On Back for his becoming one of those filler radio singles, but he hasn't really dropped an album yet, just an EP. This second single finally nabbing a little traction thanks to a video released this year, where the single was originally released 11 months ago. And on some level, I see why it might have struggled to get a lot of traction. In comparison, this is a much breezier song that seems to be gunning straight for the pop country territory that Keith Urban monopolizes, and honestly, it's not that bad of a song. Outside of the intro and some backing vocals that are thinner than they probably should be, it's got a refreshingly organic feel, even in the percussion. Where the song struggles a bit for me is in the content. It's pretty generic in its yearning for this girl, even if I do think that Brian is sincere. Overall, I don't mind this, but I can see this falling into the same filler category very quickly. Just saying. Number 94, Whisper by Chase Rice.
Answer me, baby, with nothing but your body. Your hands got a crazy way of talking, Nelly. Let the other side of these walls, the ups and downs of these halls. Oh, hear what can start with a whisper.
I'd like to start this song off with an apology. No, not from me for subjecting you to this, but from Chase Rice himself, who actually posted an open letter apologizing for the blatant shallowness of this song and promising more actual content on his upcoming sophomore album. Now, I'm taking all this with a grain of salt. While I think Chase Rice has a little bit of promise, the question of whether he'll ever make that record is a very different one. And this song, yeah, this is really bad. The jerky, lumpy percussion, the faux R&B feel, the completely out-of-place banjo, Chase Rice trying to sound husky and sexy and failing miserably, the sort of detail-focused writing that focuses in all the wrong places. Why would you care about the price of all the plates that you broke when you're making out? And the line, what if I shut you up with my hand on your lips? Dude, do you hear what you're singing? But really, this is just the worst parts of a Chase Rice song crossed with the worst production you'd ever get out of Sam Hunt. Yeah, with an even uglier vocal performance. So yeah, Chase Rice, I expect an apology from this, cause it's terrible. Number 85, Don't Let Me Down by the Chainsmokers featuring Daya.
I'm losing my mind now, it's in my head. Darling, I hope that you'll be here when I need you the most. So don't let me down. Don't let me down.
I can't be the only one who finds it a little bit weird that of the EDM acts that still have traction on the charts these days, it's the Chainsmokers who are actually sticking the landing. Despite the wild instrumental shifts, Roses has continued to grow on me, and with this track, they scoop up the girl who made the headache-inducing Hideaway to continue reputation repair. And yet, I get the slight feeling this track won't do quite as well, even despite elements that I do like. I like the liquid guitar melody that anchors the very sparse beat, and Daya herself doing her best Mia impression actually works pretty well, but dear God, that post-chorus nasal riff that sounds like the Chainsmokers doing their best DJ Snake impression, it just gets irritating as hell. I will say, when the horn layering picks up for a little bit more momentum for that final chorus and drop, it's got some real groove to it and swagger that I admire, but I can't help but feel that if the Chainsmokers had a little bit more restraint in their production, I'd like them a lot more. Roses did grow on me, so I'll see what happens here, but as it is, the song's okay, I guess. Number 83, Die Happy Man by Nelly.
If I never get to see the Eiffel Tower at night, oh, if all I've got is your hand in my hand, maybe I can die a happy man. Oh yeah, I could.
So let me start by saying that this makes more sense than it arguably should. Nelly's always had a fondness for country music that goes back over a decade when he collaborated with Tim McGraw, so to see him covering the Thinking Out Loud ripoff that Thomas Rhett wrote doesn't exactly surprise me. What does kind of surprise me is how much more I liked it than Thomas Rhett's version. The switch from guitar to piano makes it much more distinctive in order to highlight the pretty damn good underlying melody, especially when the organ comes in on the back half of the song. And while I think the percussion is a little heavier than I would use, it kind of fits the broader feel of the song. And that's the thing, Nelly's ballads have always been a little bit more overstated than they probably should be, especially with all his backing vocals. It was the same thing with Just a Dream 6 years ago, same thing here. And you know what, just like that song, I kinda dig this track more than I likely should. And at the end of the day, I'd probably prefer Nelly's clumsy stab at soul than anything Thomas Rhett does, so yeah, I like this. I'll take it. Number 78, Ophelia by the Lumineers.
Been on my mind, girl, since the flood. Oh, Ophelia, heaven help a fool who falls in love.
It's It's weird that we're getting a new song from the Lumineers. Keep in mind that it's been probably 3 or 4 years since anybody really cared about the group that made Ho Hey or Stubborn Love, and their peers of the folk boom at that time, Mumford & Sons, Philip Phillips, maybe of Monsters and Men, they've either faded, they've gone back to the indie scene, or sputtered out entirely. And yet for the Lumineers, it's almost as if they've never left, swapping out acoustic guitar for a jaunty piano and sparse percussion with odd moments where it seems like wind is swelling up over the mix. It's the lyrics of the song though that feel a little bit weirder to me, seeming to focus on a relationship left behind and now permanently cut off, where he logically knows that things must move on and yet he still has feelings left, which is a little exasperating when he says that they both have new partners already. It might not be as obnoxious as We Don't Talk Anymore by Selena Gomez and Charlie Puth, well, it's because this tone here is a little bit more benign and self-aware, but if this is what the Lumineers want to return with, I can't say I'm all that impressed. I'm sorry. Number 69, Jimmy Choo by Fetty Wap.
Jimmy Choo, when you walk in, baby, I swear that she works it. I swear she's so perfect, she makes me so nervous. The way that she works it. Jimmy Choo's on her feet when she be walking. Jimmy Choo's on her feet when she be walking.
Can I state for the record that I'm still amazed that Fetty Wap is still charting singles? You would think that at least after at least 4 hits last year, that his lack of lyrical content would start to push against him, but here he is again. And while this track does have slightly different content from his usual callouts, I can't exactly say it's a turn for the better, this time sliding right towards the same brand name luxury porn that bores me with this particular brand of hip-hop. And it's not like the more subdued chorus of the dinky production does this song any favors, with the xylophone, a limp tapping gurgle of a low end, and a chorus synth line that doesn't nearly have enough elegance to match the vibe of the song. It just sounds too cheap and forced. Look, I've talked about Fetty Wap a lot over the course of Billboard Breakdown, and this is sort of pivot towards mainstream content that's more accessible that really worries me. Because even with all his personality, it's not a good fit, and running out of things to say might be the real problem here. Number 67, Fly Shit Only by Future.
Holding on the Friday, why you looking at me? Started recognizing I'm the only one is bottles. Only one is bottles. Only one is going out the country, gotta keep a translator for the model. Only one I'm on the red fly shit, only keep the fly shit on me, keep a fly bitch on me. Fly shit only, fly shit only, fly shit only, fly shit only.
So, Future dropped a new record from out of nowhere, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm not gonna cover it. Look, I get that he's one of the biggest names in hip-hop right now, but between Billboard Breakdown and covering Dirty Sprite 2, I get Future's shtick, and there's only so long you can stretch that Thor thing before people just get sick of it. I'm currently trying to ride it out and ignore as much of it as I possibly can because I know it's not my thing. But here we have the first of 2 new Future tracks, and honestly, by the standards of Future, this is actually pretty good. For one, it anchors most of the melody and guitar until it swaps out for the strings on the final hook against the trap beat. It actually hits some crashing cymbals pretty effectively. It sounds really quite good. I might think that a beat is a tad overmixed with that watery warble that runs through the bottom, but this is probably one of the few Future beats where I can really get into the vibe and like the sound. A little reminiscent of an early 2000s hard rock or metal ballad to me with those guitar tones. And further points must be given for some great flow on the pre-chorus, where if Future actually threw up a more explosive hook, I might have gotten him bored even despite the lyrics. Unfortunately, that more explosive hook doesn't happen, and thus we're left with a parade of brand names and Future rapping about screwing white girls. Believe it or not, I want to like this a lot more than I do, but as a whole this week, it hasn't been all that good. I guess I'll take this, it's not that bad. Number 52, finally, Low Life by Future featuring The Weeknd.
No, I'm rapping for the low life. Said I'm rapping for the low life. Said I'm rapping for the low life.
In a sense, a collaboration between Weeknd and Future makes way too much sense, as they're both self-loathing characters indulging in reckless debauchery to cover up empty darkness within themselves. So you'd think they'd be able to mine more actual content than this dreary excuse for a song, swamped out in bass with a muted keyboard line that shows them ruining hotels, doing drugs, and wallowing in it all. And again, I think it's the hook that's letting both them down. I get how the song's supposed to sound faded, but it's not a good sign when Future puts in more energy than The Weeknd does. And sure, the keyboard melody does actually stick in your head and there's some solid mood to the song, but you'd like to hope that they could build a little bit more momentum and punch than this, especially when the content feels mid-tier at best for both artists. It's not exactly a lot of memorable references. I don't hate this song. For this sort of collaboration, I was kind of expecting more, gotta be honest there. So that was this week, and overall, a little tough to evaluate. Whispered by Chase Rice runs away with the worst thing that I've heard in recent memory, with dishonorable mention probably going to Jimmy Choo by Fetty Wap for just being a real disappointment. But for the best, see, there wasn't really a single standout, but the ones I probably enjoyed the most were Die Happy Man by Nelly slanging the best, followed by, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Flash It Only by Future for the honorable mention. I don't know, it really stuck with me. Let's enjoy the breather now before the insanity of next week, but till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse.